Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Welcome to the broadcast, everyone. This is Rich Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli today on this beautiful December 29th. Getting close to the new year. The days are getting longer. So us off-gridders are appreciating a little more sunlight. Usually around January 10th, which happens to be my mother's birthday, is when I notice the days dramatically getting longer. And it's a big deal when you live off-grid, when you live off solar. Yesterday I was able to supplement with my generator and fill up my batteries to 100%. It is not a hard life. It's very simple. The technology is there. It's not hard to do at all. I mean, it's kind of like having money in the bank. If you want to go out and spend your money, let's say you get a certain cash flow per week or per month, you make sure you don't go beyond that. I know a lot of people buy things on time, like furniture, like homes, like education, like vacations, food. A lot of people go over their budgets. And what off-grid living offers is an opportunity to live within your means. Know where that fine line is between needs and wants, especially during the short winter months. It's not hard to do. Again, the technology is there. It's a lot of fun. I've probably given tours to at least, well over 1,000 people by now over the years, and a lot of those people have gone off-grid. It's just another option. It's another lifestyle. And I probably visited close to 250 off-grid homes by now. And what's kind of fun about off-grid living is that everybody does it differently. Depends on your capital resources, your skill sets, your willingness to live rugged, just your overall lifestyle, your physical fitness. Everybody does it differently, and that's what makes it fun. So, we are going to keep the theme of the day, a question. Is America still the land of the free and the home of the brave? That is the question that every patriot, every American is asking right now. And did you hear, folks, that Joe Biden won the election? Yep, that pause was for effect. Yep, that was sarcasm. Yep. And Epstein killed himself. And Donald Trump colluded with Russia. And there's 57 genders. And the P dossier was real, even though there's proof that the DNC and Hillary Clinton paid for it. And the Mueller trial was not fake theater. And those couple of Democrat whistleblowers were real. And the central bank system isn't corrupt. And the Bidens are not connected to Russia, China, and Ukraine, and election integrity is intact. Little sidebar here, you have no idea how hard it is to hold back the laughter at this particular point in time. And Kavanaugh is a gang rapist. And there were weapons of mass destruction. And the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA didn't sell out America. And Obama didn't sell out America and spy on President Trump before, during, and after. And conservatives are uncensored. And Joe Biden won the election. And I got bridges to sell you. Please send me checks. See, folks, this is why we have a Constitution. Because your right to vote, your birthright, has been taken away from you, especially in those swing states. And more, too. 85% of California election was invalid. I think from what my math shows me, Minnesota was stolen, Virginia was stolen. They tried to steal North Carolina and Texas and a few other states, Ohio, Florida. But the reason why President Trump won those states is because so many people showed up. Record people showed up. President Trump won re-election not just by a landslide, but by a record landslide. But Joe Biden won the election. See, our Constitution gives us checks and balances on election fraud. Unfortunately, like the 18 states that were challenging the election fraud, they were blocked by cowardice Supreme Court justices who care more about manufacturing the perception of their own self-importance and caring more about their self-preservation than they do the American people and their own country. And that's a very, very sad time that we live in. So what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to hit the objective facts. I'm going to talk more about election and voter fraud. And maybe I'll just mix it up for a second here and talk about a little COVID stuff, since I didn't get to everything with Dr. Norm Shealy yesterday. So let me mention a few articles on that, if I may. First article, emergency hospitals dismantled despite claim hospitalizations worse than the first wave. See, folks, in order to sell a narrative, you have to lie. And it's just a shame that the powers that be, and we've given so much evidence, are making this COVID agenda 99% of everything and the actual virus 1% of everything. This is why you've heard me talk about the agenda many times. Basically crashing the economy, delegitimizing work, eliminating free market supply and demand, getting rid of cash, creating government centralized cryptocurrency, getting rid of patriotism, peaceful assembly, having big tech control everything, along with the Soros and the Gates and the New World Order and the World Health Organization and Hollywood and the crowd, the bought and paid for crowd, to make social distancing a thing so you can be submissive and have your will broken, and the artificial intelligence can get you on camera with social distancing a lot easier to put you in the database for facial recognition. Basically hiding Joe Biden in the basement, and even the so-called inauguration, making it virtual reality. Why do you think that is, folks? Because no one's going to show up. According to my math, there's probably close to 70% of Americans that believe that this election was stolen and it was fraud, and we're going to talk more about that today. And that's part of the agenda, to eliminate voting, eliminate legitimacy, and rig everything with these Dominion Smartmatic by-mail new vote processes to increase domestic violence, increase depression, division, chaos, infighting, eliminating the Constitution, freedom, liberty, the rule of law, starvation, depopulation, eliminating free speech, ability to protect yourself with the Second Amendment, forced vaccines, immunity passports, forced lockdowns, house arrest, while destroying your immune system with 5G towers. This is what happens, folks, when we allow ourselves to be dominated with psyops, when we allow ourselves to be divided and conquered by our group, our hyphen, and our pronoun. They know, psyop-wise, that if they touch your ego and they embarrass you because of whatever group you're in, and we've talked about this in so much detail, and it's part of their playbook, and they use Hegelian dialectic, professional wordsmithing, media propaganda, subliminal messages in movies and shows. It's their template, their playbook, their blueprint, their flow chart, if you will, for destruction. They purposely have to lower the bars of standards and expectations for work so they can insult people, they can insult their work ethic, their ability, their intelligence, which degrades and disrespects people. And instinctively, they lash out at the other group because they know, the powers that be know, that you don't empower a nation by lowering the bars of standards and expectations for a job. You don't empower a group. You don't empower an individual when you do that. You make the populace more submissive. There's not one example in history when mediocrity is rewarded, that opportunity, knowledge, prosperity, productivity, innovation, ingenuity increases. It turns everything into a law of diminishing returns. I think everybody can see right now that the left-right paradigm is totally false and phony. I'm sure everybody can see right now that it's an aristocracy serfdom relationship by managing the people. Okay, let me go back to talking about COVID, just to break it up a little bit. Next, Dr. Scott Atlas says America may not survive the corruption, incompetence, and fraud unleashed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, I just got done saying a bunch of examples there. Next, crazy Dr. Fauci appears to be vaccinated on live TV, and the next day he forgets which arm he received the shot. Well, how could that be, folks? Imagine my shock. Oh, next article. Rubio says you can't trust Dr. Fauci, he's a liar. And this is a really good time for me to say my disclaimer. Yes, I do not write these articles. They are all published in the public domain. And I do my best to vet the authenticity and legitimacy of these articles. Now, I've been noticing I'm getting a lot of articles coming to me, and it's by design because they want to discredit the alternative media, and a lot of these articles are incorrect. For example, one off the top of my head, I got an article about, remember the woman in, I believe, Tennessee? She was on live television. She took a vaccination and she passed out. Well, I got an article saying that she died. I tried really hard to verify that. I could not. I think it's probably an article that comes to us for the purpose of demonizing and discrediting the alternative media. Folks, we appreciate you being here. I'll be right back after the break. Welcome back, everybody. Rich Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli and broadcasting out of Northwest Montana. And I'm going to continue to talk about COVID-19 for a few more moments before I switch gears on the theme of the day. The question, is America still the land of the free and the home of the brave? And other news as well. So next, Dr. Fauci altered scientific estimates based on opinion polls. Let me talk about the mainstream media and opinion polls for a moment. And you've heard me say this part about the mainstream media many times. If you want to bet on credibility, on authenticity, on accuracy, you're better off betting 180 degrees because it's probably going to be more correct than the propaganda they give you. Because their job is to sway public opinion. Their job is to create propaganda hoaxes, false flags, lies. And that's especially true with gaslighting. That's like me sticking your hand. I'm standing next to you online somewhere, and I stick my hand in your pocket, and I pull out a dollar bill, and you go, what are you doing? I go, nothing. And a couple seconds later, I stick my hand in your pocket, I pull out another dollar bill. And they go, what are you doing? I go, nothing. And they go, you're stealing from me. I go, no, I'm not. That's what gaslighting is. That's an example of gaslighting. And swaying public opinion, you got to remember, there's only 5 or 6 companies, including production companies, publishing companies, news organization. I really use that word in quotes. Their job is to sell you the narrative, to sell you the talking points. Their job is to race bait, gender bait, sex bait, religion bait, generation bait. Their job is to create as much doubt, infighting, chaos, and pot stirring as possible. Why do you think they call the term group identity politics? It's so there's no association, even with standing for principle. And if you've heard me speak over the last 10 years, you know there's a base for standing for principle. 3 criteria, very simple. 1, the same rules, laws, and accountability for everybody. 2 is truth. And 3, if someone has less consequences for a certain behavior, then you get to do it too. This isn't rocket science, folks. So, when you really talk about polls, you have to look at, that's all part of the agenda selling. This is why I say when you shoot pool or you play chess, we can't allow ourselves to fall for these tricks, because the people who get blindsided with the psyops, who are being used, who are being played, who are being duped, they don't want to admit it. This is why we have to look 3, 4, 5, 6 moves ahead. The best pool players and the best chess players do that. The people who get played are thinking 1 move ahead. So people are waking up big time to the narratives and the illusions for sale. You know, social distancing, like I mentioned earlier, is basically a beta test for AI facial recognition. You know, a lot of what we're seeing right now it's not the Democrat Party, folks. They've been hijacked by the wealthiest people in the world to eliminate our freedoms, our liberties, justice, self-sufficiency, ability to protect ourselves, our ability to pursue happiness. It's an addiction to power, money, and control. So what they're doing, the reason why they want to take out Trump isn't because they hate him. It's because they hate us and they hate America. They need to hide the crimes. They need to continue with their currency, which is favors and graft. They need to call everybody a controversial, racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, intolerant, violent, hater, conspiracy theorist. In other words, anti-Islamist phobe. They need to lower the bars of standards for a job. They need to delegitimize work. They need to enable corrupt corporations. And I've talked about that in great detail. They need to eliminate the rule of law and replace it with precedents. These are all divide and conquer strategies. It's part of the PSYOP country that we live in. The manufactured perception of an ideology. The aristocracy wants to take over. It's a recruitment for controlling the masses. We have to be aware of this. That's what polls are. I'll guarantee you over 50% of people knows Trump won. They just don't want to admit it publicly. I'll be right back, folks. Welcome back to the class, everyone. Rich Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli, and I'm going to go back to more COVID news. Did you hear about the new report from the University of Florida? Their researchers found no asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic spread of COVID. And yes, this study is published online by the Journal of American Medical Association. I wonder how many threats, blackmails, and bribes have come out at this particular point. Kind of like John Hopkins saying that there was not a change in death rates between this year and last year, and they were forced to remove that study. Just like the Denmark study that showed that masks basically do nothing. And we've seen studies where masks create bacterial pneumonia that masks create staph infections, that masks create hypoxia, that masks, dentists are coming out now saying that they're seeing up to 50% of their patients because of masks literally getting more gum disease. And if you listen to me interviewing Dr. Norm Shealy, I think we talked about it 2 weeks ago. I asked him about the bacteria in the mouth being the most potent, the most virulent, the most dangerous, and how that bacteria is associated with heart attacks. And he agreed 100%. Just FYI. Okay, next. Boston MD suffers severe anaphylactic reaction immediately after receiving the Moderna vaccine. So you got to remember, folks, these articles will not be shown on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, or CNN, MSNBC, all those mainstream media force-selling the narrative programs because they're all owned by basically 5 corporations. Next, new Israeli study. UV light kills 99.9% of COVID in less than 30 seconds. Interesting. Next, COVID-1984. The World Health Organization, WHO, changes official definition of herd immunity to remove natural immunity. I talked about that briefly with the many questions I asked Dr. Norm Shealy yesterday. See, how many times and how many examples have I given of the powers that be changing definitions? That's why you got to get an old dictionary from probably the 90s, okay? Because that's going to show you the real world definitions before political correctness and the elite wants to change the narrative for their own benefit to control the people. Okay. What I'm going to do is, I'm so tired of, the Bill Gates, we have videos of him, audio of him talking about depopulation and we can't have any more babies and we need to depopulate the world. And it's pretty obvious, when I discuss the agenda of COVID, starvation is one of them. And what we need to do is, the powers that be use the term democracy too much. First of all, we're a republic. If you use it together as a democratic republic, I might accept that. But what they use even more often than that is the word humanity. And they do not practice what they preach. And they take our taxpayer money going to unbelievable places. And I'm going to discuss that as well. But we have to look at, when they talk about voluntary or population control, this is forced upon us. And I'm going to give you some examples. We need voluntary population control. Let me ask you something. Let's say I was in charge, or Joe Blow was in charge, or Tom, Dick, and Harry, Jane, or Sue was in charge. Doesn't matter. And they said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to reduce population through voluntary means. Let's assume the U.S. dollar still has value, okay? Let's just say that, okay? This might be a little fantasy world, but let's say. And we said, okay, well, what the board has decided, instead of using taxpayer monies going to nefarious purposes, and I'm going to mention those nefarious purposes, let's give everybody $1 million to get a vasectomy and the tubes tied. That's just an example, okay? Just an example. But if we had voluntary population control, everybody could lead a happy life, can pursue happiness as per the Constitution. We can get along better. But see, when you have the elite addicted to power, money, and control, they don't want that. That's one of the reasons I call for laws of excess. You hear me say that. What if everybody no one could have over $10 million net worth? Now, if we did that, we wouldn't have all these wealthy people doing the following. Are you ready? Here's a short list. Wars, biochemical weapons, geoengineering, not just the spray from the sky, but literally geoengineering biochemical weapons, eugenics, NGOs, dirty vaccines, cancers, foundations, where the money goes legally through loopholes, poisoning water with fluoride, with estrogen mimickers, with pesticides, contamination of food. I talked with Dr. Shealy about that. Just look at meat, red dyes, GMOs, hormone steroids, antibiotics, modified proteins, amino acid, enzymes, meat grown in labs. Now they're grown in bioreactors, grown in space. There's no nutritional value. When you don't get nutritional value, you get sick, and your immune system kills you. Okay? Surveillance, censorship, social, political indoctrination of schools, late-term abortion only for the benefit of the elite so they can organ harvest your babies. Transgender surgeries that are done through nefarious means. If people want to go ahead and do that, I think most Americans would say, all right, but think about how you're biologically and chemically being altered with estrogen mimickers in so many of our foods. You look at sperm counts, you look at testosterone counts, everything. We're literally being changed, and now they want to change us with these mRNA vaccines, which changes our DNA. Teaching children to choose your sexual identity as young as 4 years old, bailing out banks, bailing out Wall Street, banks abroad, hedge funds, world government, UN, Epstein Island, blackmail, propaganda, mainstream media, false flags, IRS, Congress, hidden bunkers for the elite, grants for big pharma for studying why lesbians are so overweight. Not a joke. Not a joke. Real stuff. Gag orders for scientists, funding who gets protection rights and restitution under the rule of law based on your group self-pity points, lowering the bars of standards and expectations for getting a job, demonizing the Constitution in certain groups, drag queen story time, stock buyouts, buying debt, corporation bailouts, government monetizing debt, Ukraine, Russia, impeachment, Mueller hoax, all you paid for it. Destroying economies all over the world. Geoengineering viruses, lowering immune systems, fake economies, shipping cash to Iran, creating beta tests all over the country and the world. This is what your money has gone to, under the guise of philanthropy or benevolence. But it's for population control and control in general. This is pretty scary stuff, folks. You have to realize just this bill that just got passed. I mean, think of the domestic funding. Kennedy Center, over $26 million. Smithsonian, $1 trillion, or is that $1 billion? There's so many zeros. I mean, National Art Gallery, $154 billion. Come on, people. National Arts and Humanities, $167 billion. Wilson Center, 14. I'm sorry, that was millions. I need to get new glasses. How about foreign countries? Egypt, Sudan, Ukraine, Israel, Nepal, Burma, Cambodia, Pakistan. Remember the gender identity stuff? I mean, in the American people, it looks like we're going to be getting $2,000. But it just goes to show that what this is for, people, it's literally to give back payoffs, to money launder for the favors and graft that's been done through our Congress. This is really sad stuff. This is one of the reasons why, we have to get to the truth. And this is why that Section 230 that gives big tech liability immunity to perform psychological warfare on the American people must go, because we're not getting accurate information. This is not a left-right paradigm. This is the elite aristocracy trying to control the serfs. It's just that simple. So we got to do something about it, people. I am going to talk now about election/voter fraud, and I have so much information here. I'm going to just whip out as much as I possibly can. I want to talk about Lynn Wood's fireside chat. You know, it's titled Season to Expose Treason, because that's what everything is, folks. It really is treason and sedition and espionage. And he's exposing the relationship between Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein. I'm just going to hit some high points. And he noticed that in recent weeks how difficult it is to determine who you can trust. That is absolutely true, and that's why the alternative media is so popular, because you're not going to get anything but propaganda, hoaxes, false flags, and lies from the mainstream media, because they're in on it. They're bought and paid for actors. And he talks about a lot of the fraud that takes place. If you want to, I'm on Thrive Time Show right now, if you're by your PC, and he talks about Canadian-owned Dominion vote-counting machines used in 28 states. The former CEO of Overstock.com explains the technology that was used to rig the 2020 elections. Tons of rigged evidence. The Chinese Communist Party government-linked bank account gave $400 million to Dominion voting systems before the election. Dominion gets its software from Sequoia Voting Systems, formerly known as Smartmatic. We've all talked about this, which is a Delaware company owned by Venezuelans close to the communist Venezuelan Chavez and Maduro family. You can't make this stuff up. And remember how our votes went to Frankfurt, Germany? We talked about all this. Trump recounts committee has seen data from Dominion servers on how votes were switched by algorithm in the software. Okay? Curtis Waldrum confirms U.S. has a copy of election night data, traffic, and packets sent overseas to Frankfurt. People, we have so much evidence. I am out of breath talking about evidence for almost 2 months. I'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Rich Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli. We appreciate you being here. I'm going to go back to the Lynn Wood interview and hit some of the high points. And we've talked about a lot of these, like, for example, our votes being counted in Barcelona, Spain, and Smartmatic, and special software features that allows users to change votes. Smartmatic owns Dominion. There's, briberies from the Communist Party, attempting to steal our election. Treason is a word used a lot. You know, and that's exactly what it is. When you betray your own country for you people in our country and you attempt to destroy our sovereignty, you overthrow the government. And this is why we need to owe this allegiance to the United States. And there's so much. You know, if you're guilty of treason, death is a major penalty here. I mean, this is serious stuff. You know, and this is why there's so much talk about the Insurrection Act, which I talked about in quite a bit of detail over the last few weeks. Some examples are Governor Kemp of Georgia choosing to use communist-controlled software during our elections. Plus, he's falsely certified elections that shouldn't have been. That's called treason. Not to mention the fact he got caught in Houston at the so-called spy camp where I believe it was shut down by Donald Trump. He also refused a special session and refused to open up true signature verification. That's called treason. This is why the Insurrection Act is being talked about. And people, this is why you in Georgia, you need to vote on January 5th. You need to overwhelm the system because these people are corrupt. And they're not just corrupt for their own personal pocketbooks and taking money out of the table. They are vested so deeply in this, they don't want to go to jail or be tried with a military tribunal because they know what's going to happen. Georgians, you need to show up in full force. You know, even Governors Cuomo of New York and Governor Newsom of California kept locking down their states, knowing that 100% of COVID-19 patients being treated with ivermectin and budesonide didn't even die. Governor Whitman, another example, Governor Whitmer of Michigan, keeping her state locked down despite knowing that COVID-19 has not caused a massive increase in overall number of deaths. You know, this is the Insurrection Act of 1807, which we went over in a lot of detail. You know, there's just so much information, and so many people say, well, that's martial law. Well, martial law has been enacted 68 times through our history. And it wouldn't even be a martial law because it would be civilians working with the military. And, you know, boy, we can talk about habeas corpus and get into a lot of detail about the Insurrection Act of 1807, but, you know, it's been used several times. 1957 in Little Rock, 1962 in Mississippi, 1967 in Detroit, 1992 in Los Angeles, and with President Trump signing the executive order in September of 2018, that really connects a lot of dots. And I've talked about this in great, great detail. And, you know, basically it creates confiscation from big tech, from the mainstream media. And basically we have, from what I'm hearing from what John Ratcliffe has of the DNI, they have all the evidence needed for the 2020 election fraud that's available. And so, you know, it needs to be done. It needs to be used. You know, the big date here, folks, is January 6th. Everybody's talking January 6th, January 6th. Well, and Vice President Pence, you seem like a nice guy, even though you did vote for some New World Order stuff. And it's very curious that you're going to be leaving the country right after that and going to see Netanyahu, who has already thrown President Trump under the bus. And what I'm reading, Vice President Pence, is that, like William Barr, you have an opportunity not to be called a Benedict Arnold. I know it sounds harsh, but what I'm reading on the internet right now, Mike Pence, is that you have an opportunity on January 6th to be a hero or to be a traitor. There's an old saying, when you want something done right, you do it yourself. And you know, this is what the Internet's talking about. Mike Pence, you can literally make January 6th our new Independence Day and stand for the rule of law with people like Thomas Jefferson. See, we have no legitimate judges, courts. We have no legitimate formal venues to deliver this information. The powers that be have sold the people out. There's no special sessions. There's no hearings. Legitimate votes have been redefined. Violations of the rule of law is over the top. We have a lawless election. Voter fraud, election fraud, theft, foreign interference, treason, sedition, payoffs, money laundering through taxpayer-funded bills. It has to stop. Vice President Pence, you have to be a hero. We have our president, President Trump. We have our general, General Flynn. We have our army, 100 million patriots. Let's put the country first for a change. Welcome back, everyone. Hour number 2, and this is Rich Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli, broadcasting from the Northern Rockies here in Montana. And I want to put an exclamation point on Mike Pence being a hero, and I know he's getting a lot of flack from the people. But you got to remember, Vice President Pence, the people haven't been represented in a very, very long time. We realize that we're still under national emergency that offers more options and a few more paths to Trump victory. But I'm not just speaking for myself, but for the probably thousands of alternative media voices out there today. When I started 10 years ago, there was probably in the hundreds. Now it's probably in the tens of thousands. That might be a stretch, but I bet I'm not too far off, not necessarily the actual broadcasts and programs or channels, but the media personalities that are out there. And I'm not trying to speak for anybody, but I know for myself, I am out of breath discussing all the election fraud. And that's basically what this is. It's no confidence in the system, and that's why the Constitution has these checks and balances. I mean, Arizona's saying that there's no illegal ballots when proof is close to 100,000. Wisconsin, 221 illegal votes. Michigan, 300 and almost 80,000 ballots are illegal votes. 95,000 confirmed, or 500, pardon me, confirmed dead. 2,100 years older. Come on. 174,000 without voter registration numbers. And this is one of my favorites. The Georgia Secretary of State brings his attorney. Official authorities should be working for the people, buying and threatening all venues to curb facts and evidence from getting to the people, and he brings his attorney so he can make sure his responses are scripted. You know what that's called, folks? That's called acting. You see, January 6th, if it comes and goes without action, we are not going to be represented by anyone. And I realize, like I said a few moments ago, there are other paths to victory. But there is so much election fraud, voter fraud, it's immeasurable. President Trump easily won over 400 electoral college votes. So going back to Pence's role, since he will not have received any certificates or votes from appointed electors as required by the Constitution, directed by the legislature in those states, and unfortunately it's not just these 7 swing states. There's California, there's Virginia, there's Iowa, there's Minnesota, there's New Mexico. There's so many states that Trump probably won just from the math that I have discussed over the air. But everybody's concentrating on these 7 states, so we're going to go there just for context. So since all state legislatures essentially require in some form that their electors be appointed by honest and non-fraudulent elections, remember, count the legal votes, remember that? Not all votes. All the videos of ballots going through the machines, being recounted, showing up in suitcases, showing up in trucks. Remember the ballots going from New York, Long Island to Pennsylvania, and then there's like well over 200,000 completed ballots, and all of a sudden the trailer was stolen. You can't make this stuff up. There's so much overwhelming evidence of fraud, and especially those states, it's unmeasurable. I am blue in the face talking about it. That's what I've been doing for almost 2 months, at least 2 to 3 times a week. So anyway, if that happens, the burden of proof switches to Biden and his campaign to show that the elections were not fraudulent, which good luck there. So they have to either agree on a new election by January 6th, and since our Supreme Court justices are bought and paid for cowards, they won't get involved because they didn't get involved on the Texas case. So Biden will have only 2 weeks to seek redress, and Trump-Pence will win 232 to 227 of majority-appointed electoral votes. And after that, assuming no honest elections occur within that time frame, and I use the term honest elections, put quotes on it, asterisks on it, and italicize it in every other font you can think of. So all remaining certificates, papers, votes would simply be opened by Vice President Pence on January 6th, handed to the congressional tellers, counted up under normal procedures, which in this case would give Trump the presidency, since Trump and Pence will have the majority of votes consistent with, as expressly required by the Constitution under Article 2, which does not require 270 electoral votes, only a majority of those appointed in this scenario. So Vice President Pence, in the alternative as the chair, because he presides over the joint session, he's the tie-breaking vote in the Senate. He's the head of the Senate, if you will. On January 6th, can simply tear those ballots, those votes, similar to the way Nancy Pelosi tore up Trump's speech during the State Address, the State of the Union Address. Remember that? And not accept the electoral slates from states proving elections result from fraudulent elections that violated laws passed by the state legislature in violation of Article 2, section blah, 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 blah. So keep in mind, the irony here is that Nancy Pelosi set a precedent by tearing up official papers in acceptable behavior because she's a Democrat and anything goes in the House of Representatives. So again, Trump and Pence will win the majority 232 to 227. Now let's say Pence inherits William Barr's yellow spine and he cowards out. Trump and Pence, believe it or not, would still win on a contingent vote if Pelosi forces that contingent vote. So Trump will win 26-21-2 in the House by state delegations. Remember, one state, one vote. And Pence, 52-48 in the Senate. Now, we have so many turncoats, so many people who've been bought and paid for, so many rhinos and neocons, I don't know if that alternative choice will work. We're living in very dangerous times, folks. Very dangerous. Now I'm going to go to more election/voter fraud. This is from Sidney Powell. Her account got locked with 1 million followers, and she says she has 5,000 affidavits and enough evidence to overturn the voter election fraud. Hashtag Biden concede. Do you not love, is there anybody who doesn't love and respect Sidney Powell? She is awesome. That's what an American does. That's what an American looks like. And she just released, by the way, 270 page document on massive election fraud involving foreign interference. That's what I was talking about. That's what the executive order is about. That's what the Insurrection Act of 1807 is about. Okay? Foreign interference. Okay, folks, I'm looking at the time and I'm looking at my data, and things aren't jiving. So I'm going to start shortcutting my shortcuts here. Pardon all the sidebars, but there's just so much to talk about. It's impossible not to make comments. Okay, next. Georgia election, untrustworthy and riddled with fraud. Senate committee report concludes. This is Georgia. Next. President Trump tweets Gateway Pundit video showing poll workers stuffing, I really need to get new glasses, stuffing ballots into tabulators numerous times on elections. How many times have we seen this, folks? This is getting ridiculous. Next. Michigan AG Dana Nessel threatens lawyer who released results of forensic exam of 16 Dominion voting machines in Antrim County. Threats. This is Banana Republic stuff, people. When you threaten somebody is when you're desperate, when you're cornered, when you can no longer use objective facts and you're suffering with subjective emotional opinion to save your butt. Here's a good one. Woman arrested for sending threats to Wayne County Republican who refused to certify the votes. The threats included pictures of mutilated bodies. Okay, here's my disclaimer again. These are published articles in the public domain. I try to verify as much as I can. This is the real thing. I am not making up these articles. I promise. Next, Rudy Giuliani. Voting machines were programmed to give Biden somewhere between 2 and 5% advantage. These are all facts. These are proven. Next, Georgia congressman releases report claiming election workers purposefully committed ballot fraud. Next, vote Democrat gets $1,200 van spotted all over Georgia. You can't make this stuff up, people. There is nothing legal about this election. Nothing. Next, Wisconsin GOP lawmakers joined federal lawsuit to overturn fraudulent elections in swing states Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, and Arizona. Next, Fox News blocks attorney Matthew DiPerno from appearing on Hannity and Lou Dobbs after explosive Antrim County details. People, if everything is censorship and surveillance and threats and blackmail and bribery, we're not a country anymore. There's no rule of law. Next, mainstream media, FBI, DOJ covered up Hunter Biden investigation to help Joe Biden. Next, recount confirms Trump won Michigan County that reported a Biden win on election night. Next, Georgia's corrupt Republican leadership. See, people, it's a left-right paradigm. Anybody can be bought off. Anybody could be bribed. Anybody could be blackmailed and threatened. Now, is it mostly the Democrat Party? Absolutely, because some people think it's an ideology to eliminate the Bill of Rights and Constitution and sovereignty of the American people. So Georgia's corrupt Republican leadership gave Joe Biden win by less than 12,000 votes. You're going to love this. But yet 460,000 Dropbox ballots are still missing. This is chain of custody documentation required by law. Welcome back, everybody. I'm just going to keep ripping out stuff, shortcutting by shortcuts, because I have too much information for the time allowed. Next, voter fraud on display. Houston ballots all have the same signature and same address. I saw the photos. This is real. Next, Dominion's anti-Trump executive Eric Coomer owns patents on adjudication process that investigators found skimmed Trump votes. You can't even make this stuff up, folks. There's so much evidence of election and voter fraud. I'm getting hoarse. My face is turning blue. This is getting ridiculous. Next, Dominion voting machines are related to Smartmatic Sequoia machines, and they do have functionality to switch votes. This is not new news. Next, Bobby Pitton reveals phantom voters, zombie voters, on how Dems have rigged nearly every election for decades. This is really serious, folks. Our sovereignty is being flushed down the toilet. This guy, Bobby Pitton, is a mathematician. He found more than 500 unique last names in Pennsylvania alone. And, quote, he is blamed on a sophisticated state actor that was able to optimize the desired outcomes. What 500 million unique names means is that there's no other relatives in that state with that last name. So these are made-up names for the most part. And over 200,000 illegal votes were certified in this state. The governor, the AG, pardon me, I told you I was going hoarse. These people should be put in jail. That's what the executive order and the Insurrection Act is about. All right, I'm running out of time. Next, IT expert Ramsland audit in Savannah, Georgia shows tabulation machines were sending results to China. I mean, this is just getting stupid now. 2 months of this stuff, and yet we're still playing this game. Next, Mo Brooks rips GOP quitters, including Never Trumper Adam Gizinger, who are unwilling to do their homework. See, whether it be people in the Senate, Congress, lawyers, judges, the court system, the attorney generals, the whole works. These people aren't even looking at the evidence. This is why Vice President Mike Pence on January 6th you have to stand for the rule of law with Thomas Jefferson and be a hero. You can't count on these people with the process. Too many people are bought and paid for. My God. Is there anybody with a spine who gets paid from the taxpayers left? Or is everybody thinking about their own self-preservation? Unfortunately, I think we know what that answer is. But Mo Brooks, you're a hero. Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Getz, Jordan. I mean, there's some really good people working their butts off. But so many people, if they're not being paid under the table, they're being blackmailed. What a shame. So many, over 1 million people, combat soldiers, gave their life for our freedoms and liberty. And so many of these people are also peeing on their graves. Next, evidence of foreign influence in 2020 election. Nevada Secretary of State caught sending voter data list to Pakistan. Pakistan intelligence. You can't even make, you can't make this up. I'm sorry. Next, California Secretary of State Alex Padilla to fill Kamala Harris's Senate seat after illegally funneling $35 million to a Biden-linked firm. I can't take it anymore. It's unbelievable how corrupt and how much fraud we have in this country. Next, video links Biden to Ukrainian corruption. Burisma indictments revealed ex-president Yanukovych illegally obtained $7.4 billion laundered through funds to the U.S. Democrat Party. Video links. You can't make this stuff up, folks. What the hell are we? Are we the United States of America or what? Welcome back, everybody. Rich Scheben here, sitting in for Vincent Finelli, and I'm just going to go back to more news on election/voter fraud. And the Gateway Pundit, a great website for news. The Detroit TGF Center is slow-walking the Gateway Pundit request for the 3:30 a.m. footage on Joe Biden's ballot dump. No fraud there, nothing to see there, folks. Next, Senator Kelly Loeffler. Church camps disgusting, this is in quotes, child abuse allegations should disqualify Warnock. Apparently, from what I was reading, he threw urine on a boy. That needs to be verified. I only read it once. Next, Republican Gohmert sues Pence to grant the vice president the authority to save the republic from a rigged election. See, here's another hero, Representative Gohmert. This is what, and this could, it's a great alibi, Mike Pence. It's a great, I think this is very appropriate to do. You cannot count on, just because there's a national emergency and these other paths to victory, you can't count on that when so many people are bought and paid for and blackmailed. You just can't do it. Next, alleged DOD official says illegal ballots were offloaded from a plane in Arizona, then driven to a Maricopa County to rig the election. This is serious stuff if this can be verified. I only read this one place. It's really hard to believe anything anymore, folks. It's just like this RV, this so-called suicide bomber. Well, I also have proof and articles showing it's a different RV because there's different markings on different RVs. So this so-called narrative of the suicide bomber and the bomber found probably somebody who they threw in that vicinity because they wanted him killed. Who knows? But why is the mayor of Nashville, with widespread cell phone outages, why are they issue civil emergency? Is this a beta test to see how people react? How come that there's an article regarding SolarWinds parent company owning data center affected by this Nashville Christmas bomb until 2015. Owned. Is that a coincidence? How come the Nashville explosion was, there's some people are saying it was a missile strike or some type of satellite new weapon or drone new weapon, and the target was actually AT&T and the NSA hardened switch facility they call the Spy Hub. How do you know what to believe anymore, folks, with all this corruption? Seriously. Okay, next. Dominion Voting Machines is partly owned by Joe Brothers' brother-in-law. Now, I only read this one place. I don't know if it's true, but apparently Valerie Biden Owens, Joe Biden's sister, is married to John Owens. His brother, Kevin Owens, is the founder of Staple Street Investors, which owns Dominion Voting. Staple Street Capital is a private equity firm founded in 2009 based out of New York, and the co-founders are Stephen Owens and this guy Hooten. I'm not even going to pronounce his last name. But we need to find out if Dominion Voting Machines is partly owned by Joe Biden's brother-in-law. I cannot. There's got to be thousands of reasons to stamp this election null and void. Thousands. Next, Pennsylvania's voting rolls are such a mess that even Pennsylvania can't tell courts details on how dirty they are. 800,000 inactive names on the voting rolls. I mean, come on, this is a Judicial Watch lawsuit. 800,000 inactive names? Come on, people. Next, hidden in the 5,893-page bill that real Donald Trump anticipated to veto in a provision that nullifies the president's use of the Insurrection Act. I don't know what happened with that. That's something that needs to be looked into because the Insurrection Act should be valid. This is just a joke. I know President Trump signed it. I don't know what the specifics are behind that, but it needs to be checked. Next, in the weeks before he landed a deal with the Ukrainian gas company in 2014, Hunter Biden strategized with his business partner on how to leverage an upcoming official trip to Kiev by his father, then Vice President Joe Biden, to clinch the lucrative arrangements according to emails obtained a year ago by the FBI. Next, Fulton County, Georgia had a 109% registration rate, more names on rolls than eligible voting age citizens. Voter rolls in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Michigan also a mess. Dirty voting rolls can mean dirty elections, you think? Next, Georgia election official who scoffed at Trump's claims says certain women used his home address to illegally vote. And it happened more than once. Next, Ron Raffensperger, the brother of Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, works for Hawaii and China. How close are they to the China government? People, if this is true, another stamp of null and void. Next, I'm not sure to begin with this vehicle. Eric Garcetti defunded the LAPD by $150 million and forcing them to protect his house from protesters. People, we need practice what you preach laws, and we need them desperately. Next, Cobb County, Georgia, voting facilities found wide open, unlocked, no one in the building, and the judge blocks voter list cleanup in 2 Georgia counties. So keep in mind, in Cobb County, Georgia, the facilities were wide open, unlocked, and no one in the building. So they could have swiped the computers, they could have replaced them with demo computers. This is such a scam. Next, judge blocks voter list cleanup in 2 Georgia counties. You're going to love this. Judge Leslie Abrams Gardner, sister of Stacey Abrams, rejected a call for her to recuse. You can't even make this stuff up. And Christopher Langdon, apparently the smartest man in the world regarding IQ. I don't know if that's the smartest. I think there needs to be a balance, but that's besides the point. He said the election was delivered for Joe Biden and was a total fraud. Next, I vouch for this. This is Patrick Byrne talking. I have seen the photographs, the computer forensics, and the IP traces back to China, to a corporation whose name has been long linked, to the Chinese Communist Party. Exam indicates Georgia tabulating machines sent results to China. This is ridiculous. Next, documents released by Ukrainian General's Prosecutor's Office reveals millions of dollars funneled to Hunter Biden and the John Kerry family. These people should be in prison for crying out loud. Next, a new picture of the computer servers. We have it all. Apparently, this seized Skittle, the Spanish company, and servers in Frankfurt, Germany. And I don't know how to really say what this is, but it's labeled as a domino with 11 black dots and 1 yellow dot equals 1212 servers and 4 disks. Basically, this company, Lenovo, is a Chinese multinational technology company, and if you look at the software and the hardware, it says Lenovo on it. It's incorporated in Hong Kong and has global headquarters in Beijing, China, and operational headquarters in Morrisville, North Carolina, as well as the U.S. and an operational center in Singapore. Don't look there. No foreign interference at all. I'm just making all this stuff up. Yes, that's sarcasm. Next, President are way off in Pennsylvania. More ballots were cast than people voted by more than 200,000 votes. Next, they say in Nashville was an RV explosion. Well, I looked at also at a video, and could it have been doctored? Yes. But it showed the explosion actually initiating across the street, not in the RV. So police are questioning people. It was obviously to get rid of the data dump for the Dominion voting machines, and I think the powers that be are a little worried, and that's why they did this. Next, Kathy Boockvar, she's the State Department in Pennsylvania, I believe, stated under oath. But why does oath mean anything today, folks, right? It all depends on your group, right? She stated under oath that only 10,000 ballots were received and counted past the 11/6 legal deadline, the November 6th legal deadline. Yet Pennsylvania made stealth database edits on November 23rd and December 16th, indicating over 70,000 such ballots. So how come Boockvar is not arrested for perjury? Why were these ballots allowed, people? Next. Actually, that's what I'm going to do now, folks. I'm going to switch gears a little bit because I am so blue in the face with all this evidence on election and voter fraud. I'm going to switch gears and talk about the consequences of what happens when we're politically correct, on what happens when we decide to lower the bars of standards and expectations for a job. What happens when nothing matters anymore? What happens when certain people demand no protection, rights, or restitution under the rule of law for people who are targeted and affected and replaced with runaway power, with more wealth inequality, with liability immunity, with giving free lunch to the elite, and letting us fall for more divide and conquer strategies for the sake of your group hyphen and pronoun. So I'm going to talk about those articles. I'm looking at the time. I know I'm skipping around here, but I'm running out of time, and I apologize for that. I'm going as quick as I can. Next, a taste of the future. Global elites at World Economic Forum promote fake meat using 3D printers. Now, when you use fake meat, folks, like me and Dr. Shuley talked about, there's no nutrition. There's no enzyme. There's no benefits except destroying your immune system and making you sick. Welcome back, everybody. It's Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli. Last segment of the morning. We appreciate you being here. And listen, I feel obligated to fight for our country. That's why I'm giving out as much information as possible. You know, with all the propaganda, hoaxes, false flags out there, just like with this RV and all this disinformation, who knows what's real. But when you read these articles, you hear about negative connotations towards, AR-15 rifles or 5G paranoia, or if they have the words white supremacist in it, something like that. You can tell that a lot of these articles are basically manufactured for the reader's perception so they can sell the narrative, sway public opinion, and divide and conquer us. So keep that in mind. Okay, next article. And I'm going to rip through as many as I can here. Basically, banks just changed the rules to allow share buybacks again. I've done that when I've done my Economic 101 updates. I've done that in a lot of detail, talking about stock buybacks and how it basically is a cash-in stock option to benefit the elite and the corporations, the CEOs, the executives, and it's at the expense of the little people because it basically eliminates expansion, new products, new services, research and development, and especially people and employees. And a lot of these stock buybacks are also contrived through debt. So they sell debt of these corporations, often zombie companies, to unsuspecting hedge funds, pensioners, derivatives. And I've talked about derivatives a lot, like credit default swaps. It's basically bundling papers behind the scenes, selling them, then reselling them. It's basically you just have a contract between two parties, and they determine what the value is of an asset, which is basically paper. It could be bonds, equities, commodities, real estate, currencies. It doesn't matter. It's a side bet. It's like betting on anything. It's like going to a casino without the free drinks. Kind of selling insurance protection hundreds of times over, and it's measured in quadrillions. I mean, quadrillion is a very serious number. So if this system ever goes down, it's just going to get very ugly. So I just wanted to mention all that. Okay, I'm running out of time here. I'm going to move. Next. Last man to share a cell with pedophile Jeffrey Epstein dies from COVID. Of course he did. He probably got suicided. Doesn't matter what he died from. It's going to be COVID. And, of course, the last man that knew Jeffrey Epstein in prison was killed. Oh, I'm sorry. He died of COVID. My bad. Next. GM recalling nearly 840,000 vehicles for seat belt failures and suspension problems. If Vince Finelli's listening right now, I'm sure he's drooling and his neck is swelling from the excitement of this article. You know, who knows what it could be? GM, could it be to load something in your car, more tracking, computers to shut off your vehicle, listening devices? Who the heck knows today? It's just like the big banks. They're basically protected hedge funds. Today they use the people's deposits. They don't use it for making loans anymore, these big banks. They use it for the banks use deposits as collateral to leverage everything up to gamble with it on currencies, bonds, derivatives. Stock buybacks, keep the share price up, owned by Wall Street and the big banks in order to change the rules. Do you know, folks, more than 35% of our currency has been created in the U.S. ever this year, ever. Most of that was created in the last quarter of 2020. This is why M1 money is shooting through the roof, physical currency and coin. And that's why there's so much lack of confidence in the system, in commerce, in anything anymore. Because people don't get proof. Just like the voting. How can you trust anything with all anomalies, abnormalities, irregularities, math impossibilities, glitches, illegal votes, dead people voting. My gosh, thousands of voters with the same name and address and ballot stuffing and poll watchers being turned away. With no transparency, no signature matches, how can there be any reliability or worthiness with all this corruption? How? It's impossible. Affidavits, witnesses, thumb drives, internet connections, foreign intrusion, dirty voter rolls, intimidation, unsealed ballots. It's almost impossible to get validity and confidence in anything today in this country, because everybody in the institutions and the highest course of the land have turned into cowards, traitors. They're bought and paid for. They're blackmailed, and guess who suffers? We do. Next, immigrant women now have a higher income than white males. That's right. Next, PepsiCo, IBM, Mars, Dow Chemical, Loyalists. IBM sold computer matching to the Nazi Party and CCP as well. Next, New Mexico sends stimulus checks to 15,000 illegal aliens. You're paying in New Mexico for illegal aliens. NPR lists Cardi B's song as #1. I can't even say it on the air. What? And I can't say the rest. Next, House of Representatives passed measure to decriminalize marijuana at the federal level. But don't worry, folks,